Okay, we're ready. So looks like again, just this is probably going to be a quick one. Anish, you want to talk about the .14 release?
Uh, yeah, so last week we merged the gRPC changes, basically adding the gRPC client and then also adding a fake server to show how the providers would need to implement the gRPC definition. So what we decided was we want to release 0.0.14 today so that providers can vendor in the latest release and implement the gRPC server changes for the provider. So we've merged all the required changes for 0.0.14. Right now we have a PR open for bumping the images. Once that's merged, we'll have the automated build and then we'll cut a release today. And the rotation PR, which is out there, we have moved it to 0.0.15 milestone because we want to isolate the changes so that the big change in 0.0.15 will only be rotation. And then users know that the new feature has been added as part of that release. But the rotation PR is also out there. And then Rita and Tommy have taken time to review it. It'll be nice to get more reviews on that PR when everyone gets a chance.
And you said rotations moved to .15, not 16. I think I might have heard you wrong. Just the next
.15
patch version, right? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for that, Anish. I'm just going down the line. Next, we have Tom. Talk about the default. I think that's supposed to be gRPC. You know, is PG RPC a new protocol?
Yeah. That is meant to be gRPC. Yeah. Hey. So thanks. I was just wondering if we have a reference implementation. I hadn't realized we had a fake server, so I'll check that out. But I was looking at the Azure provider and saw that the proto definitions were copied over. But I guess I was assuming we'd have kind of one place for them to be defined. Anish, do you have any thoughts on like how we should share those proto definitions?
Yeah, so if you look at the provider, the secret through CSI driver, we have the proto definitions under the provider directory. So I just shared the link on the Zoom chat. So the expectation is all the proto definitions exist in the driver under this directory, and then the provider would just vendor this in with that particular tag. So once 0.0.14 is released, what I'm going to try and do for the Azure Key Vault provider is just vendor in this directory and then just use the proto definitions from there.
Okay, nice one. Cool. Yeah, that's what I was hoping for. And am I right thinking that to do this, I'll need to make the Vault provider pod a privileged pod and share the host networking as well?
No, so for the Key Vault provider, I'm piggybacking on host networking because there are certain token request calls that we make that we want to stay on the host, but host networking is not mandatory. I mean, if it's required, then you probably need to turn it on. But for the Key Vault provider, we have a necessity to use the host network. But you would require the volume mount for varlib kubelet. Actually, I'll add a doc for that as part of the RISC release.
I think the communication between the CSI driver and the plugin is all through a Unix socket, not a host network, right?
Right.
Right, cool. Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm just getting my teeth stuck into this, so thanks for clearing that up.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Next, we got Jason. Talk about the Vault CSI updates.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a quick update on the Vault CSI driver. Tom and I have started this CSI update project. So we had our kickoff earlier this week, and we are, agreeing internally what a GA driver might look like. So the features that we want to include, like rotating and renewing of secrets and leases, being able to, can't remember off the top of my head everything, but there's a list of things that we're going to be going over the next month and digging into the code and seeing if they're even possible. So I suspect next month we're going to have a lot more questions about CSI in general and how we can make some of our requirements work with the driver. So definitely some updates coming from the HashiCorp side. The project will probably see a little bit more activity in the coming weeks.
Awesome. It's good news. I know we've been getting a lot of people asking what you guys provided, so it's good to see that moving along.
Yeah, Jason, if you want to share, even if it's a draft form of, hey, here are the bullet points of what we're looking at, like as soon as possible, I think that would be really good. That way, at least we can also say, hey, here's also, these are the issues tracking these items that we're already aware of, versus, hey, here are bullet points that we never really thought was like a requirement for stable /GA, right? So I think, yeah, so I see the link that you just shared.
I just shared a gist in chat that is just some notes I've been taking. So we have internal documentation that I can't share as well, but these are some of like the high level bullet points that we want to have a feature parity with our Vault Agent Injector, our other secret injection tool. So trying to get as close to feature parity, plus having things like the environment variable and Kubernetes secrets syncing, make the CSI driver really valuable to us. So mostly just trying to get this in sync with the other project and add the cool stuff on top.
Nice. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. This is good.
So may I ask that everybody on this call maybe take a look at this, and then maybe we can follow up and talk about this in more depth in the following community call. I don't know if we have enough time, but we can also talk about this, some of these here on this call if we need to, if we have time. Jason, this is, I guess, more like your availability for the next call.
Yeah, I could be on the next call. That's fine. Yeah, we can talk about, because a lot of these things are probably going to bubble up in priority for us. So we'll just want to make sure that we know what is and what isn't possible.
Okay, let's definitely follow up. We'll definitely take a look at this and follow up asynchronously before the next call.
Thanks, Rita.
All right. Next, Rita, you're up. Talk about the default RBAC required for the driver.
Yeah, so if you can click on the link. So this was like a discussion that came out of the rotation PR. It essentially, we're adding additional RBACs based on what users select as the features that they want to use. For example, sync secrets and the rotation reconciler, right? So based on that, there is a discussion around, hey, what is the default RBAC we want for the driver? And is it a good user experience when people have installed it and then later on realizing, hey, I actually need more RBAC because of these feature flags that I turn on, right? So I just want to open this up to the group here and get more thoughts around what is our stance on the default RBAC we want to deploy out of the box for the driver. And as you can see here, oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I guess I was going to ask, like, what's the current security posture now? Like, where do we see vulnerabilities, if any?
Right. So by default, we think users so meaning sync secrets is an opt-in feature in the future. Right now, currently, if you're installing through Helm, we do turn it on by default for backward compatibility, which will require additional RBAC to, for example, watch the secret, right? Watch on secret objects and CRUD operations. Obviously, that is not needed if you don't need to synchronize with Kubernetes secrets, right? And here within this rotation reconciler, there's additional GET request access required for pods. I think for the node security, node secret, right? No pod secret that we get. So in general, right, the guidance is pretty much, you should only deploy or request additional RBAC if the solution requires it, right? And I think Tommy had brought up a good point about, hey, if you're not using the synchronizing secret feature, why require why grant additional access to the driver?
And then the one driving factor behind that is, I can't remember what the feature is called in Kubernetes, but it's like node isolation, I think, where you might have different, pools of nodes where you want some workloads to be able to run on some, but them to not have access to the workloads that run on different nodes. And I think the secret syncing feature required just blanket secret read permissions. So over the, I think, entire cluster. So just I'd like the default policy to work with node isolation so that the driver doesn't then become a path to accessing data from workloads that shouldn't be able to run on the node. I don't know if I explained that well there, but I can try to look up more about that node isolation.
No, are you talking about the taints and toleration features, or is it something different?
Sorry, say that again.
I was asking, are you talking about if you're using the taints or tolerations to land workloads on?
No.
Building kind of like an infinity?
It's having different security boundaries per the actual instance nodes, so that you can the kubelet process right on one node can't access information for a pod that isn't supposed to be scheduled on that kubelet or on that node.
Okay.
That's kind of I probably need to look more into that feature, but that's the one where I would just like the default permissions to not break that. I don't think that a sedition breaks that, being able to get the pod information. But that's kind of
okay.
the root of one concern.
I guess because this is looking at the pod that's running on the same node as the driver, right? Specifically here, we're looking at pods that are running on the same node.
And I think I'm going back and explaining the separation of the secret syncing feature into a separate RBAC, where I believe the permissions on that could allow the driver to get a secret for a workload that isn't allowed to run on the driver's node. where being able to get pod metadata, I don't think has that same like escalation of privilege. So that's why I'm less concerned about this change than I was about the secret syncing. And then when you were asking about the like, what do we want in the base, like RBAC permissions? My just comment is, I just like the base RBAC permissions to not allow kind of escalation between node workloads.
Okay, so so in that case, I guess the PR is good as is, right? And we're okay with the current default RBAC then.
I think so, yeah. Sorry, I haven't responded back on the PR yet.
Okay. Does anyone else have an opinion about this?
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, that's the end of topics that are in here. Is there anything else anyone wants to discuss?
I just want to bring up there's another PR in the driver, basically to revamp the end-to-end test suite. It's actually a huge PR moving to using Go and Ginkgo. So it'll be nice to get more eyes on those PR. Right now we're using BATs, and then we're trying to move to using Go test framework so that adding more tests is more easy. And this is the PR actually changes the test framework for all the providers. So it'll be nice to take a look and see if that's the right way to go, and then also comment on that PR.
And which PR is that?
245.
Yeah, okay. So, okay.
Can I ask a question about this rotation secret PR?
Yeah.
How do you expect to signal to whatever pod is consuming the secrets that it has changed? Is it up to the app to kind of be checking that periodically and reloading their configurations, or are you thinking like for like Kubernetes secret syncing, like having the internal mechanisms of checking the SHA of the secret and seeing if that has changed and rescheduling the pod?
So for the phase one part of it, the phase one that this PR implements, what we do is we update the values in the mount path, and then we also update the Kubernetes secret. And I have an issue open to just add an event recorder just in general so that we can report any kind of errors for syncing secrets or other secret Kubernetes secret related events, right, to the pods. But the path forward for the workload pods is they either watch on the file system to see changes in the files and then automatically pick up the new credentials. And then if they're using the secret Kubernetes secret for populating environment variables, then they would need to restart their pod. But as part of phase one, we are not going to initiate any kind of restart because the primary functionality for the driver is just to mount the contents and then not do anything else, right? And in terms of notification, I think the events would probably be give the user details that, yeah, something has been rotated or something has been updated, and then they could take actions based on that. but we don't want to go and restart any of their pods just yet. Because today, the way Kubernetes does it is if you have a Kubernetes secret and if you mount that as a volume in a pod, updating the secret only updates the contents in the volume, but it doesn't do anything else apart from that. So we're trying to follow the similar practice that Kubernetes does today.
Yeah, that makes sense. With the agent injector, we have the ability to send signals if we share the process namespace, but I don't think that's possible since the CSI pod and your app pod are different. So yeah, I guess the only way would be rescheduling or watching the file system. So thanks.
Okay, so that's the end of everything that we have tagged for discussion. Unless there's any other.
I see
anyone wants
Rajat
to bring
from AWS join the call. Rajat, do you have any questions for the AWS provider or any updates for the AWS provider?
Did we lose him?
I see him on the call, but he's on mute. Oh, no, he's not.
Yeah, I think he. Okay. Hopefully you didn't scare him.
Yeah, he's not on mute, but I can't hear him. So
Yeah, he's there now.
No, we can't hear you.
Okay, maybe he's having some difficulties with his audio. Okay, I would say, Rajat, if there's anything that you want to say, you can just maybe update the Google Doc.
Can you hear me now?
Or add a note.
yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, you're on the line.
So I was actually speaking when we were speaking about the reconciler, but I think we just. So I had a question with the reconciler, right? So
yeah,
when we mount a secret into the pods like what Kubernetes does today, does it mean that Kubernetes will be able to, the pods or the applications on Kubernetes will be able to consume those secrets as and when we update them, or would they need to restart to consume those secrets? How does that work?
So, I mean, if the workload pod is actually watching on the file system, then it would automatically refresh its config based on changes in the file system, right? So it would see that the file that it was watching has changed, and then it would just read the new credentials and then reinitialize on its own. But other than that, the only other way possible is if you don't have file watchers and if you need to consume new credentials, then you would just need to do a rolling update of your deployment so that new pods get created, and then they will obviously contain the new mount. So then they would just start fetching the new credentials.
Okay. I had one other question. I was actually looking at some of the codes. This is unrelated to what we are discussing here. Mm-hmm. So I saw this user pod identity for AWS provider, right? And it's only specific to AWS. How is AWS able to retrieve the pod identity today? So you're able to specify the pod identity or the...
Oh, you mean Azure?
Yeah, Azure, sorry. Yeah, sorry. My bad. In Azure Service Provider, you're using the pod identity, right? So how does that work today?
So we actually, for pod identity, the way we do it is we configure custom resources, and the user provides which managed identity to use for the pod. And then the use pod identity is just part of the generic parameters field in secret provider class. So we send the entire secret provider class to the provider unmarshals the whole object. And then from there, it knows that this pod wants to use pod identity. And then it requests the token for the particular identity from the pod identity components.
Okay. The reason I asked is because I think that is the problem that the new enhancement is trying to solve, right? Because the new CSI driver enhancements will automatically provide you the pod identity, and you can then restrict the secret to specific pods. So I was curious to understand.
But that's with Kubernetes service accounts, right? This
Yes.
pod identity is Azure managed identity,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
right?
For the Google provider, what we currently do is obtain through the Kubernetes API a Kubernetes service account token, and then we trade that with the GCP APIs for a GCP identity. So similar but different, and so that is the CSI driver enhancement would make it so that just the Kubernetes service account is directly passed to the CSI driver, so that our plugin would not have to talk to the Kubernetes API for a service account.
Okay, that makes sense. So the only other update that I had from our end is we're still in the design phase of this, and we're still trying to figure out what would be the best solution that we can put out there with not compromising on the security. So that's taking us longer than we expected.
Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out on Slack, on Kubernetes Slack, CSI Secret Stores. There's a Slack channel, so please feel free to reach out, and any one of us will be able to answer any questions you have.
I'll do that. I'll keep that in mind.
And also, if you have any questions or comments on the reconciler PR, please feel free to add it to them. I mean, we're looking for more reviews and more eyes on it. So,
okay.
In general, for all PR. So,
okay.
Okay. So I think we got everything for this meeting. Next meeting will be October 1st. We'll be in the new month. I'm recording this locally, so I'll do some light trim edits, and I should have this published here within the next 24 hours. If you would like to be the moderator, or you want to take notes, feel free to sign up for that. And with that, we can go ahead and end the meeting, unless if there's anything else we've missed that anyone wants to quickly chat about. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, see you.